if you have a fire in your house or in the garage and you don't have a fire door between the house and the garage, or you don't have a fire wall, they won't pay because your house is not built according to fire regulation. Don't give up. Decide what you want in life. To me, what is important is that my clients understand what is wrong, what happened, why is there a crack in the wall, what happened.
And how can they increase and maintain the value of that property so that they can later be able to sell it.
There's a big difference between repairing and patching. If you patch something, it's going to come back. How do you repair it properly that it doesn't come back? Get up out of the gutter, dust yourself off, and write down what you want and write down steps. How are you going to achieve it?
All right, guys, welcome to the It's More Than Just Money movement channel. We are shooting in Midrand, South Africa at the Protea Hotel. My name is Mdaka, and I'm your host on the Winner Circle on the It's More Than Just Money movement channel. And today I'm not sitting alone. I'm having a conversation with Marisia Robus. She comes with a wealth of experience, and she's been in the property industry for a very long time. Not only that, she's been in construction. She started off in construction when she was very young. And she's also an editor of a book called The Homeowner's Choice.
No, The Proud Homeowner.
The Proud Homeowner. The Proud Homeowner. This is her book. Actually, her father, Albert van Wyk, wrote this book. He had been in property as a contractor or person who was in construction for more than 38 years. But Marisia also grew up in the family business. The family business made you who you are, eh?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most
Where did
definitely.
it all start for you?
It started for me when, as a primary school child, I used to go to site with my dad during school holidays. Mm-hmm. That was the greatest thrill of my life. To be on a construction site, to see what happens, and to see how houses are constructed. I loved it from a very young age.
Mm-hmm. So was it something where you were forced to go there? And maybe before we even get into the technical side of property and what you do, I want to speak to Marisia, the human being, the person, and what led to you actually becoming who you are. And I remember earlier on when we were talking, you said you initially wanted to be an attorney, which means you had dreams and aspirations different from what you are currently doing, although you're doing well. But give me your background in terms of upbringing, where it all started, and take us through, paint a story, a picture for us.
So when I was in Standard 5, which is now grade 7, they chose 50 girls out of the then Transvaal. Now, I mean, this was a long time ago, to go and study electronics in high school in Potchefstroom. So I was one of the 50 girls, and it was a totally different thing. So from Standard 6, we only had maths, science, electronics, technical drawings, Afrikaans and English. We didn't have any of the other subjects. And I loved technical drawings. It was fantastic. Then when I finished matric, I didn't know what to go and study. So I applied for a whole host of courses at university. And I said to my dad, okay, the one that they accept me for is the one I will go and study. Now, I applied for architecture and physiotherapy and BSc electronics, BSc engineering, all of these various things. And I got accepted for everything.
Oh, you're a smart kid.
And then I didn't know what. I said to my dad, what must I go and study? He says, how must I know? So I made a deal with him.
How many subjects? How many courses were those?
I applied for about 7.
Different courses?
Different courses.
Because some of them are unrelated. Occupational therapy?
Yes. I mean, architecture. But the only one that they They approved me for a BA law or a BCom law, but not a pure BCom. So obviously my bookkeeping skills, they could then see were not good. But I was accepted for all of them. So then I said to my dad, I want to make a deal with him. I want to go and work for a year. And if I work for a company for a week and I don't like it, I'm leaving. And he said, that's fine, but you have to qualify yourself in what you're going to do. And I went straight to the newspapers. Mm-hmm. I was always fascinated with newspapers and with advertising. And I worked in the newspapers for 6 months, and then I moved over to a financial advertising agency. And we did advertising for companies listed on the stock exchange. So I did the listing documents, annual reports, advertising, financial advertising, and I loved it. It was hard work, but my dad had a construction company, and I kept on asking him, I want to come into the construction company with you. And he kept on saying, no, construction is not a place for a woman. And then one year we went to the Star Home Show. Now, they don't have the Star Home Show nowadays anymore, but they used to have, when they launch a new development, they would get 10 builders to build 10 houses. People would come and look at the houses and buy stands. And we were walking through the Star Home Show, and Montague Homes had built houses there. And my dad said, oh, so by the way, do you know the CEO of Montague Homes is a woman? Well, my dad and I had a huge fight in the middle of the street. And I said to him, if she can head up a construction company, why can't I work for you? Another couple of years, and eventually he said, okay, come into the business with me. He got a huge contract. He got a big contract from ABSA to build something like 150 houses for them. And he needed the admin and the NHBRC and everything taken care of. So then I joined him in the construction company, and I loved every minute of it. The day I started working for him, he started building a house. And he said to me, you will go to site every day. Some days you will be there for an hour, other days you'll be there for the whole day. And from day one, he would say to me, the bricklayer is setting out the house skew. And I was like, how do you know? And he would teach me. Then he would say to me, go back to the office, go and measure how much steel we must order for the foundations and how much concrete we must order. So I learned from the ground up. He taught me that you don't plaster a wall that gets afternoon sun in the afternoon. You plaster that wall in the morning. You don't plaster a wall this side if the wind is blowing from this side. You wet the plaster. All of those things I learned. Then he would say to me, the bricklayer did this wrong. We're going to have this type of crack there. And then later, when my dad became too old to run a construction site, and we closed the construction company and opened the inspection business, we would do inspections, and he'd say to me, you see that crack? The bricklayer did this wrong. Or this happened because that is wrong. And from the days when I worked for him in his construction company, he made sure that I knew the building regulations. And I believe that is my strength today, that I know my building regulations. And that is where I save my clients a lot of money, and where I am, I believe, of a big benefit to my clients.
Right. So what inspired you to start Gauteng Property Inspections?
We started it when we closed our construction company, and my dad and I...
What was the reason for closing the company?
My dad was in his 70s and getting too old to run a site. And the biggest reason was our subcontractors were all retiring. So the subcontractors my dad had, the bricklayers, the tilers, the plasterers, they'd all gone to artisan school. They were skilled. They were trained properly. And my dad was struggling to find bricklayers and plasterers and tilers that were up to his standard. And it was becoming very frustrating. And we even went to the Master Builder Association and said, can we not start a training school, train artisans and everything? And they said, no, it's not necessary. So it was just too frustrating, and our quality was very important to us. And we decided, no, this is actually not worth it. And I then said to my dad that we can't let his knowledge go to waste. And we started the inspection company.
Right. So you headed up the inspection company around about that time, right? And how did the many years of experience that you spent in construction shape your approach when it comes to property inspections?
It's very important when I look at reports of other inspectors or I talk to other inspectors. To me, what is important is that my clients understand what is wrong, what happened, why is there a crack in the wall, what happened, and then very importantly, how do you repair it? There's a big difference between repairing and patching. If you patch something, it's going to come back. How do you repair it properly that it doesn't come back? And that is what's important to me. And the big thing with any property, if you look at property investors, they buy the cheapest house in an area, the house that looks the worst.
Yeah.
And why does the house look the worst? Because no maintenance was done. So everything in property boils down to two things. Was the property constructed properly, according to regulations with the correct materials and everything, and has maintenance been done? That's what it all boils down to.
So what are the common issues that you've encountered during property inspections? And do you have some stories that you can use?
Unfortunately, I do. The biggest issue in houses is damp. And it's because of a construction error. I have in the last 7 years found one house that did not have rising damp damage. One house. So if
Wait,
it's
in all the houses you've inspected in 7 years?
Yes, I found one house that was not face brick, because face brick houses, you don't have rising damp on the outside, but you might have damp damage on the inside if the DPC was not fitted correctly. But I found one house that did not have rising damp damage.
But what do you think is the problem then when it comes to the construction of the house? And maybe perhaps touch on what you think could be the problem with the construction industry and how they build houses and how that can be rectified in your opinion.
So the issue is that the contractors, the bricklayers who build the houses, don't know their national building regulations. Then you have the site supervisor or foreman who doesn't know his building regulations, and he doesn't correct the bricklayer and say to the bricklayer, you are doing this wrong, this is how you must do it, okay? Then the developer or the builder or whoever's in charge over the site foreman, they don't check what the guys are doing, and they also don't know their building regulations. And people sit back and think, okay, the NHBRC is there and they are going to protect me. They are going to look after me. They don't. It's a national building regulation and an NHBRC regulation that the joint at DPC level must be created properly. The DPC is supposed to protrude. So what it does is the water will
say
come
it in
up.
simple English. The DPC is supposed
Must
to
stick
protrude.
out. It must stick
What's
out
a
by the
DPC for those who are
DPC is
watching?
a piece of plastic, a damp-proof course.
The black one.
The black one.
Damn course.
Yeah. And it goes on the outside wall and it must stick out 10 millimeters. That's what in this book, there's a drawing. The National Building Regulation and the NHBRC guideline says exactly that. So what happens, you can't stop water through capillary action going up a wall. But the reason behind this is when it hits the DPC, it goes down again. And the regulations very clearly says that the plaster must be broken there. The plaster mustn't continue up the wall. So now what happens is they plaster the wall solid, they draw a line where they think the DPC is, and they think that's fine. But the water now goes up all the way, and you have the damp damage. Now, the NHBRC, they don't check up when they go and do their inspections on site. If they do their inspections, the banks don't do quality control. When you're building a house, they just go and check how much money has the builder spent, and they pay that amount out. They don't do quality control. So what happens is you as a consumer who have now bought a new house, you sit with a damp problem in 12 to 18 months' time. But the people who I do snag list inspections for, before they sign the happy letter for the bank to say, yes, I'm happy, pay the final money to the builder, if I do a snag list inspection, I say that is done wrong. You will have damp there in 12 to 18 months. Then what happens is the builder says, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I say to my clients, that's fine. Tell him to tell you in writing, in an email, Marisia doesn't know what she's talking about. Then in 12 months' time, sometimes earlier, my clients phone me in a panic. Marisia, you said we would have damp. We've got damp. So, well, told you so. Now you send that email back to the builder and you say, you remember when you said Marisia doesn't know what she's talking about? We've got damp. Come and fix it.
Yeah. So that makes me want to ask, how old were you when your father started the construction business? And how old were you when you now started to realize or be aware and be in the environment of building? And then when you started to work for him fully?
I started working for my dad fully when I was about 38.
When you were 38?
Yes, about 38.
Okay.
Yeah,
he had been running the company for how long?
He'd
then?
already been running the company for about 10 years at that stage.
At that stage?
Yes.
So you had no desire to start with him when you were 28?
I wanted to, but he wouldn't allow me. He said construction is not a place for a woman.
Construction is not a place for a woman. So those words are quite critical because that speaks to transformation of an industry. I'm sure now those are not the words that many females hear.
No.
So when you look at the construction industry and how things have been done back in the days and now, how do you think it has evolved over the years?
It has definitely evolved that we have a lot more women in construction. And the other problem that I see, or the issue that I have, is the NHBRC was a good idea. And this picture was painted that your house is going to be enrolled with the NHBRC, and the NHBRC is going to look after you as a home consumer. But in reality, they only assist you if the builder doesn't do snags in the first 3 months. They only make sure the builder gives you a 1-year roof leak guarantee and a 5-year structural guarantee. So only if there are structural cracks. Now, I am petitioning the Minister of Housing, and it's been taking long and I'm trying hard, that I want the NHBRC to say and to force the builder to give you a 5-year rising damp guarantee. And the other issues that we have, when you build a new house, you are issued with COCs, certificates of compliance. But I find, for instance, a plumbing COC is issued. But when I do a snag list inspection, I find that they've used concertina pipes behind the toilet. Now, what should happen is the town council...
Crostina, guys. Crostina.
Yeah. And they do it because the plumbers are not skilled enough to use a solid pipe to position the toilet. So they use a concertina pipe because they can squash it. Now what happens is the town council, when they come and inspect the property before they issue the occupancy certificate, they are supposed to check these things. They must check, is there safety glass where there is supposed to be safety glass? No, there's not. The glass in the doors are not safety glass. Is there a concertina pipe? The plan says there's got to be insulation in the ceiling. Is there insulation in the ceiling? They don't check that. They just take the COCs and they issue an occupancy certificate. And the builder turns around and says, I've got an occupancy certificate. I don't care.
So in that case, what advice would you then have for someone who's buying property for the first time? Be it as an investor or as a home they're going to live in, and how can they increase and maintain the value of that property so that they can later be able to sell it?
So the most important thing is to have a property inspection done before you buy a property. If you're buying off plan or you're building a new property, have construction quality control inspections done throughout construction. And then the most important thing is you've got to do regular maintenance. You know, you buy a car and your car must go for a service every 15,000 kilometers. We all take our cars for a service. Your house, you leave it. You expect the waterproofing on the roof to last forever. It's got this UV rays of the sun on it permanently. It needs maintenance. Your window frames, it needs maintenance. The bath, the silicone around the zincs and the basins, your hinges on your built-in cupboard doors, it all needs maintenance. If you do regular maintenance, your house will last for a very long time, and the property developer will not come and buy, or a property investor will not come and buy it, because your house is not going to be the cheapest and the yachtiest house on the block or on the street. Because you've done maintenance, you're going to get a higher price for your property when you sell it. You must also remember that if you don't do maintenance, insurance
Are we talking
will not...
preventative maintenance, or are we
Yes.
talking regular maintenance?
Regular maintenance and preventative maintenance. So if you don't do maintenance to your roof, if you don't clean the gutters, if you don't clean the valleys, if you don't do the mortar between the ridges, and you have a roof leak, insurance is going to come out. They're going to say, haven't done maintenance, we're not paying. And they are legally
Is that
within
in
their
most
rights.
insurance company contracts?
Yes, in all of them. If you go and read the fine print, it says they do not pay if you haven't done
Do you
maintenance.
think people read those things?
No, they don't, but they should. I did a webinar once with the head of ABSA Home Loans Insurance. And the things that are in there, they don't pay for subsidence. So if there are structural cracks. So if your foundations weren't done correctly, or you built on clay and they didn't do the foundations, or there's a tree that causes structural cracks, insurance is not going to pay. They don't pay if you haven't done maintenance, and they don't pay if your property was not built according to building regulations. So flooding. If there's a bad rainstorm and your house is not 150 millimeters above the finished ground level, they won't pay. The fact that even if it was 150 millimeters, your house would still be flooded because it was such a bad storm, besides the point. They say it would have flooded less. If you have a fire in your house or in the garage, and you don't have a fire door between the house and the garage, or you don't have a fire wall, they won't pay, because your house is not built according to fire regulations.
But how do people check those things? I mean, I'm imagining if somebody is buying a property, maybe they are newlywed, or they've bought property many times, it's just that there's never been a problem. How does one check what a firewall is, whether or not there's a fire door? How do they know those things before they even purchase?
That's why you need me to do a property inspection for you, because I check.
But what if you're not there?
Then you just wait a day or two until I've got time to do your inspection. So it's very, like I say to my clients, you can go, I mean, if you look at the building regulations, it's from Part A up to Part XA. So it's a lot. It is a lot. You can go and learn your building regulations, read through it and see what's got it. And then you've got your plumbing and your roofing and electrical and everything. But I'm there. I know my regulations. Use me. Utilize a NABISA certified property inspector.
What's ABISA?
NABISA is the
NABISA.
National Association of Building Inspectors of South Africa. So we have created a qualification for building inspectors, and it will be for home inspectors, then to do snag list, work for the NHBRC, work for insurance, and eventually work for the top level is work for the council, the town councils. And we're waiting for SACWA to approve that. So make sure that you've got a qualified building inspector who knows what they've done. Ask them for previous inspection reports. Make sure they're registered with NABISA, and get a qualified property inspection done. It will save you a lot of money.
Okay, but when hiring a contractor, right, or someone to do renovations or new builds, what do homeowners need to look out for? Or what are the things that they need to look out for when hiring a contractor for that?
Okay, first of all, ask him for 5 references.
5 references.
And phone those people or go to their houses and say, Tom built a room for you, or he added a bathroom, or he did this. Can I please see what it looked like? How was it when you worked with him? Did he go over budget? Did he finish it in time? How was his workmanship? Now, in the Proud Homeowner, we detail all of that for you, how to hire a builder. Then the most important thing, and if I tell you the amount of inspections I do that people say the builders run away with the money or it's not done, and you say, where's your contract that you signed? Oh, I didn't sign a contract. If a guy's building a room for you, if he's renovating your bathroom, sign a contract with him. On my website, gautenginspect.co.za, you can download a contract. I also have a finishing schedule there. Very important. If, let's say, you're coming to build a room for me with a bathroom now. Now I specify, I want the walls rhino lighted. I will buy the bath and the taps and the tiles, but you've got to buy the tile glue and the grout. You will do the labor, I will do everything must be specified. Then there's no arguments because I'm buying the tiles and you thought I'm buying the tile glue and grout. And I said, no, but you allowed for it in the quote and there's no arguments. Put as much down on paper when you can. And then very important, again, in the Proud Homeowner, we've got a complete chapter on additions and alterations and everything. One of the mistakes people make is when you add on a room, they tie the brickwork, the brick walls in like this. Now, the problem with this is the old wall. The bricks are dry, the plaster is dry. If now you've got a new wall, these bricks are not completely dry. Now there's movement and you get a crack. Okay? You get a crack. So the correct way of doing it is you tie the walls in like this and you put steel rods in between. So the old wall stands still and the new wall can move without creating cracks. So little things like this. And you've got to make sure that the builder, when he builds, don't let him buy the cheapest silicone. There's an Afrikaans saying, goedkoop is duur koop.
Hey, cheap is very expensive.
Cheap is very expensive.
But tell me, what's the most memorable project that you've done in your construction days with your dad, all the way to now being throughout your career? What's the most memorable?
Okay, so building 3 houses at the Star Home Show in 2000.
Yeah, 2000, 24 years ago. Ma 2000, also bit.
Yeah, so some people weren't even born then.
Yeah.
We built...
Like Alec, where is he? He wasn't here.
He wasn't here.
Just like he's not here now.
A yellow house, okay? And the architect painted it yellow. And it was like... And it was an amazing experience. It was absolutely...
What was this all about? You said it's the...
So what it was
Star Home Show.
Yeah, Star Home Show. So what it was sponsored by the Star newspaper. Now those days, all the property adverts went into the Star newspaper. So the Star was the newspaper for property. And they would take a new township, builders would build houses, and then they'd be there for 2 weeks and people would come and visit, see the houses, and then buy stands in this new development. So that was amazing. And then now, my biggest thrill is when I can assist clients to take on a builder who made nonsense, and I can actually help them get out on top.
Yeah.
I've actually got a developer who, and this doesn't happen often, a developer who had a problem with a builder came to me and said, please, can you fix this mess that this builder made? And I'm now working on the 3rd development that these guys messed up. Now they're going to build the next phases. They did the 1 phase in the latest development. We fired the builder. And the next phases, I'm going to do construction quality control once a month and make sure that the end product for the client is perfect. To me, that is important. When I can help people when they buy off plan, that they can know before the time you're going to have problems there, or when they buy a house, that I can say, there's damp, there's a problem in the roof, there's a structural crack that they're hiding, that people know what they are walking into. Because buying a house is a big expense.
Yeah. So that speaks to sustainability, right? What do you think sustainability and energy efficiency will play? What role do you think they'll play in the future of construction and inspections?
The big thing with energy efficiency and so on is that it's got to be implemented by the town councils, the NHBRC, and then the councils must check that the builders are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that is a problem. You know, I do a snag list. On the plan, it says 130 millimeter insulation must be fitted in the ceiling. You climb in, there's nothing. The plan says, because also a new building regulation was passed, that in certain areas of the country, they have to build cavity walls. So you don't build 220 walls, you have an opening, because it actually assists with the cold coming in and the heat going out. So that is being implemented soon. And all of these things are important, because the other thing also is that houses must face north. So you can get the northern sun in the winter and you don't get the hot summer sun. All of these things make a big difference.
So how do you balance your business commitment to being an advocate for homeowners, to being an inspector, to being a mother? You've been a mother for many years. You've been a wife for many years. How do you balance all those things? Is there such a thing as a balance?
No, there isn't.
Because you climb roofs.
I do. I do, yes. And unfortunately, luckily my son is 26, so he doesn't need his mommy every day anymore. But he still lives at home and I still spend a lot of time with him. But he's doing his own thing. My husband runs his own business and my husband is very supportive of me, very supportive. And yes, my balance is maybe not what it should be, but I love my job. I love taking on the NHBRC, the town councils and things like that.
I feel like you're doing it for a thrill, Wayne.
Maybe I am. Maybe I am.
Why do you have that look on your face when you talk about it? Why does it look like it's a thrill? It gives you excitement to want to do these things.
It does give me excitement because people are doing things wrong. They're not sticking to the law and homeowners are being disadvantaged and it's costing them money and they losing money and they shedding tears and they unhappy in their houses, which shouldn't be. When you buy a house,
are losing money.
The investors are losing money. When you buy a house, should be a thrill, wonderful place to live in, and then you get done in by builders and things. So I don't. Yeah, I stand up for the small person.
So could that be one of the most rewarding aspects of your career in construction? And perhaps is that the kind of legacy you want to leave, or is there another thing that has been the most rewarding for you and that you hope will be part of your legacy?
Yes, that is the most rewarding part of my job and of my inspections and everything, helping people and making sure that they're not being done in and that they know what their rights are.
It's quite interesting that it's your business, but you call it a job.
I know. Yeah, well, it's my passion. It's my passion. And my legacy that I would like to leave is maintenance. Maintenance is much cheaper than having to replace something. Much cheaper to do maintenance than to replace something.
Yeah.
And that is why I recorded an online maintenance program. And that is why I'm working so hard at that. And to explain to people how and when to do maintenance. Because a lot of times, if you tell me to solve this huge maths problem, I would like, ugh. But if you show me step by step how to do it, then it's fine. So people go, maintenance on a property. Where do I start? What do I do? But I show them step by step how to do it. It's not difficult. If you do it regularly, it's not expensive. If you use the right products, it's not expensive. They last long, and that is important to me, to hold people's hands, show them step by step how to do it. As I'm sure you can gather, I love telling people what to do. And I love sharing and teaching and showing people the right way to do things.
If you're given an opportunity to speak to, as I'm drawing to a close, to speak to young people that have no idea what it means to be a property inspector and they want to be in the industry, and you're given an opportunity to speak to them through that camera, what would be the words that you would say to them?
You have to be passionate about property, and you have to love the bricks and mortar and understand what a house or a dwelling or somewhere to live means to people. You have to understand that. And if you want to become a property investor, you have to understand that your investment is actually going to uplift other people for them to live in. So you have to understand and be passionate about property. Then learn your building regulations. You have to make sure that you know them back to front. Do our course and then come, let me train you.
Yeah. And if you were given an opportunity to speak to your young self, do you feel like you would have words to say to yourself?
My young self, I would say, be more firm with your dad and get into property earlier. Although I loved financial advertising and everything. And yes, maybe just remain fit and healthy. Don't allow yourself to say you're too busy and stop running and things like that. I would prefer to have remained fitter.
Mm-hmm. So, last question, or maybe last request from me. We have young people watching here, older people watching. Some are inspired, some are dejected, some have lost hope, some are full of hope. They're white, they're black, they're Indian, they're colored, they're orange, whatever, doesn't matter. And maybe perhaps one of them is sitting there saying, you don't know my struggles. And perhaps you are more privileged than I am. You can speak articulately. You are privileged to have a dad that inspired you, that coached you, that opened up the world to you. But I'm about to give up, man. What would you say to that young person?
Don't give up. Decide what you want in life. We were talking earlier about goal setting. And you very cleverly said to somebody who said, no, my goals are up here. It's a dream. It's a pipe dream. Write down what you want in your life. And I promise you, you will find somebody out there who will actually assist you in reaching your dreams and your goals. And be it that I mentor you, that witnesses videos inspires you, that you watch some other videos on YouTube or find some free books to read or whatever, decide what you want to do. If you give up now, what happens? What legacy are you leaving? Don't you want to leave a legacy? Get up out of the gutter, dust yourself off, and write down what you want and write down steps. How are you going to achieve it? And go for it. Remember, I always, when my son was at school and we had to sell raffle tickets, I would phone people and say, listen, we've got a raffle ticket at school for this, it's $20. And I sold a lot of raffle tickets. And people would I'm like, all they can do is say no. And if they say no, you move on to the next person. But most people say yes. You don't want to ask a question because you're scared they're going to say no. So what happens if they say yes? Chances are that they will say yes. But you will never know if you don't ask.
Sure. I'm going to coach you there. You'll never know if you don't ask. You have a quote, your favorite quote?
Never give up.
Never give up. And then your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Values Factor. And The Gratitude Effect by John DeMartini.
Gratitude effect, values factor. Okay. You have any last words to say?
Do not buy a property without doing an inspection. Do not sign the happy letter for the bank if you've built a property without doing a snag list inspection, and do your maintenance on your properties. Proudhomeowner.co.za has the book and the maintenance program. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Marisia Robus, who is a property inspector, as well as one of the editors of The Proud Homeowner. And from me and her, broadcasting from Johannesburg, South Africa, I'll see you in the next episode. It's more than just money. Don't forget to click on that subscribe button. Don't forget to click on that notifications bell, because we don't want you to miss any of our upcoming inspiring educational videos that are going to move your life to the next level. Share this with as many people as you can. Signing out, it's more than just money. Ciao, ciao.